They gave her the oldest rifle they had, until the Navy SEAL sniper discovered she was the weapon. There is a moment on every shooting range when everything goes quiet. Not because someone asked for silence, but because something happened that nobody expected, and nobody quite knows what to say. That moment happened on a joint military exercise at a base in North Carolina. It happened because of a woman named Elena, a National Guard sergeant, a 26-year-old who showed up that morning looking like any other soldier. She had her gear, her uniform, and her orders. What she did not have was a good rifle. What she got instead was a piece of history nobody wanted anymore. The exercise that day was a joint evaluation. Regular Army National Guard soldiers and a Navy SEAL team, both on the same range, running the same drills, being assessed for interoperability. In plain language, that means testing whether different branches can work together when it counts. Each shooter was assigned a weapon from the armory. Most got modern equipment, well-maintained, recently serviced, zeroed in properly. Elena was handed an M24 sniper rifle that looked like it had survived 3 deployments and been forgotten about for a decade after that. The wood stock had deep scratches in it. The scope had a known drift. The barrel had wear in it that told you, just by looking, that thousands of rounds had passed through it. The soldier who signed off on that assignment was a master sergeant, a career man, old school, the kind of person who had been around long enough to have opinions about everything and the authority to quietly act on them. Nobody said anything out loud. Nobody filed a complaint. The allocation was just done, logged, and moved on from. Elena looked at the rifle for a second. Then she picked it up and walked to her assigned lane. Her bunkmate, Corporal Reeves, was nearby when Elena sat down with the weapon before the exercise started. Reeves expected her to inspect it for damage, maybe complain to somebody about the condition. Instead, Elena just sat with it, held it in her lap, turned it over slowly, ran her fingers along the stock, looked through the scope without firing, adjusted her cheek weld, did it again. "What are you doing?" Reeves asked. Elena said, "Learning it." She did not explain further. She just kept doing what she was doing for another 15 minutes until the exercise was called to begin. The qualification drill that morning put shooters on targets from 300 meters out to 800 meters. 14 soldiers on the line. The conditions were not ideal. There was a crosswind running across the range that kept shifting, the kind that punishes anyone who does not adjust in real time. The Navy SEAL evaluator, a chief petty officer named Hale, was running the assessment for his element. He had 8 years of experience in the teams, with time overseas in environments where precision shooting was not a drill, but a life-or-death skill. He had seen good shooters. He had trained alongside great ones. When the first round of target boards came back in, a range officer flagged something and called Hale over. Lane 7, 12 rounds, 12 hits, all of them within a half-inch grouping at 600 meters, with a rifle that was 3 decades old. In a crosswind that had been throwing off experienced shooters all morning. Hale stood in front of that target board for a long time. Then he looked down the range toward the woman still lying prone in the dirt. He did not say anything, he just looked. Word moves fast on a military range. By the time the second relay was set up, people were already talking. Some said it had to be a scoring error. Some said it was luck, good luck, exceptional luck, but still luck. Short sample size, anomaly, happens sometimes. The master sergeant stepped in with the paperwork to match the theory. He formally logged it as an anomaly and requested a recheck of the scoring apparatus. He did not outright accuse anyone of lying, he just introduced enough official doubt to slow things down, which is a skill in itself. Hale asked to observe Elena informally, not through the chain of command, just one shooter wanting to watch another. The master sergeant denied it on procedural grounds. Technically correct, a small move, but a move nonetheless. None of this was told to Elena. She returned her rifle, signed out of the range, and went to the mess hall for dinner. She had no idea any of this was happening around her. That night, Reeves told her that people were talking, that some were impressed, some were skeptical, and that the whole thing had gotten complicated in ways that had nothing to do with her shooting. Elena asked one question. Did it affect anything operationally? Reeves said no. Elena went to sleep. Hale was not the kind of person who let bureaucracy be the end of a story. The next morning, he arranged what was technically a familiarization shoot, a normal part of joint exercises. Within scope, nothing unusual on paper. He invited Elena to participate. She agreed without much reaction. She asked only what distance and how many rounds. Hale brought a modern Mech 13 sniper rifle, the same system his unit uses. Top-of-the-line equipment. He handed it to her. She held it for a moment. Then she set it down and asked, calmly, if she could use the M24 instead. Hale said yes, not entirely sure why she was asking. She had known that old rifle for less than 18 hours. What happened over the next 25 minutes became, in the quiet, unofficial way that things get talked about in military circles, one of the more documented informal shooting sessions in recent base history. Nobody announced it. Nobody put out a notice. But 11 people found reasons to be somewhere near that range that morning, because someone had told someone who had told someone else. Elena fired at targets from 400 meters out to 1,000 meters. 1,000 meters is not a casual distance. It is the length of 10 football fields. At that range, wind, humidity, the rotation of the earth, all of it matters. Shooters with purpose-built equipment and years of dedicated training miss at that range. She did not miss. What Hale was watching, and what the overhead security cameras on the range were recording, without anyone remembering they were there, was a shooter making constant real-time adjustments. She was compensating for the barrel wear she had learned the day before. She was accounting for the scope drift. She was reading the wind flags down the range and adjusting before each shot, not after. Between one shot and the next, a gust crossed the range unexpectedly. The footage later showed her pause for less than half a second, shift her body position, and then fire. The round hit. That half-second adjustment, that read and react, was not a beginner's move. It was not even an intermediate move. It was the kind of thing instructors talk about in advanced sniper courses. It was the kind of thing you either develop over years of serious practice, or you do not develop at all. Hale watched the whole session without speaking. Afterward, he stood there for a moment. Then he walked over and said to Elena, quietly, "How long have you been shooting at this level?" She thought about it. "Since I was 14. When the master sergeant heard about the informal session, he escalated. He filed a formal report, questioning whether Elena's National Guard credentials qualified her for SEAL interoperability evaluation at all, and requested that her scores be excluded from the joint exercise record. It was a reasonable-sounding argument, built around bureaucratic logic, the kind of challenge that, in many cases, simply grinds things down until someone gives up and moves on. Hale submitted a counter-statement. He did not argue. He did not attack. He attached one thing: the footage from the range's overhead security cameras. The footage that showed, without any possibility of dispute, what had happened, what Elena had done. He let the images speak. The report was dismissed. The master sergeant was quietly reassigned off-range evaluation duties by the end of the week. No dramatic confrontation, no press conference. Just a reassignment, done quickly, and not discussed further. The official after-action report included one sentence about Elena's performance. Sergeant Vasquez demonstrated exceptional marksmanship proficiency, exceeding standard evaluation parameters. Military paperwork is not known for poetry, but sometimes a single sentence is enough. A few days before Elena transferred into the new program, Hale found her at the armory. He wanted to ask something that had been sitting with him. He asked where she learned to shoot. She told him. She grew up on a ranch in rural New Mexico. The nearest neighbor was 4 miles away. Her father taught her to shoot when she was young, not as a sport, not with any ambition attached to it, but because it was practical. You lived far from everything. You needed to be able to handle yourself. She started competing in precision rifle matches at 14. She kept competing through high school, through her early adult years, through her time in the Guard. She had placed in regional competitions. She had studied ballistics the way other people study textbooks. Nobody in the military had ever known any of this. No one had asked her, and she had no reason to volunteer it. Hale formally recommended Elena for inclusion in an advanced joint marksmanship program, a program typically reserved for active-duty special operations personnel. The recommendation was reviewed, approved, and acted on. She became the first National Guard soldier and the first woman to enter it. The M24 that Elena used during that exercise was formally decommissioned the following month. It had done its time. Per range records, it was the last weapon she qualified on as a regular guardsman. The rifle was not destroyed. It was put into storage. Someone, The records do not say who, had attached a small piece of tape to the stock before it was boxed up. 2 words on the tape. Lane 7. Here is the thing about that morning that still gets talked about, in that quiet way that things get talked about when people are being honest with each other. The old rifle was supposed to be a disadvantage. That was the point of giving it to her. The assumption behind it was simple. Give someone worse equipment, and they will perform worse. It is a way of limiting someone without technically breaking any rules. But it did not work. Not because Elena was lucky. Not because of some perfect set of conditions. But because the person holding that rifle had spent 12 years building something that no equipment decision could touch. She had put in the hours when nobody was watching, in a field in New Mexico, learning things that never showed up on her personnel file because nobody ever thought to look. The oldest rifle on the range turned out to be in the hands of the best shooter on the range. They gave her their problem. She treated it like a tool. That is the whole story. There is no bigger twist, no dramatic speech. No moment where she tells anyone off. She did not need to. The rounds spoke. The groupings spoke. The tape on the stock of a decommissioned rifle speaks. Some people walk into a room and make a lot of noise so everyone notices them. Elena walked into a range, lay down in the dirt, and put 12 rounds where they needed to go. That was enough.